Today, I want to discuss on basic principles of healing and on the use of drugs. So, dear friends, I want you to take note of this that the basic principles upon which modern medicine is based are twofold. This is poisoning and cutting. While in training, every nurse, pharmacist, radiographer, doctor, physiotherapist, or any health professional, they are told that every drug is poisonous. Two primary types of poisons they use are chemical poisoning and radiation poisoning. The other method is cutting. If something is wrong with an organ, instead of letting it heal, cut it out. Why waste your time? In great contrast are the natural healing principles, which work with the body's own efforts to restore health. So here we find rest, generally briefly, a liquid fast, light meals, enemas or colonics, water applications, fresh air, sunshine, avoidance of harmful substances, and trust in divine power. Or in summary, a mnemonic called the New Start, which is nutrition, exercise, water, sunshine, temperance, air, rest, and trust in God. So here's a clarifying passage which is outstanding in its simplicity and breadth of understanding, written by a pioneer in natural remedies, Ellen Gould Hammond White. The solution is to teach the people. That is the solution. I quote, the only hope of better things is in the education of the people in right principles. Let the doctors or physicians and nurses teach the people that restorative power is not in drugs but in nature. The true nature of disease, it is a cleansing process. Disease is an effort of nature to free the system from conditions that result from a violation of the laws of health. What should you do when a person is sick? In case of sickness, the cause should be ascertained. Unhealthful conditions should be changed. Wrong habits corrected. Then nature is to be assisted in an effort to expel impurities and to re-establish right conditions in the system. Here are the 8 natural remedies. I've preempted them above. I will repeat them again. Pure air, sunlight, abstemiousness or temperance, rest, exercise, proper diet, the use of water, trust in divine power. These are the true remedies. We abbreviate them as New Start, NEWSTART. They are very, very powerful. So the following presentation of the nature and effects of medicinal drug medication is taken from the writings of Ellen G. White. She was an influential author and worker in the field of health and natural healing. She was also the founder of a major medical college. When you read the book called How to Live, on page 60, she says, drugs never cure disease. They only change its form and location. When drugs are introduced into the system for a time, they seem to have a beneficial effect. A change may take place, but the disease is not cured. It will manifest itself in some other form. The disease which the drug was given to cure may disappear, but only to reappear in a new form, such as skin diseases, ulcers, painful diseased joints, and sometimes in a more dangerous and deadly form. Nature keeps struggling, and the patient suffers with different ailments until there's a sudden breaking down in her efforts and death follows. What a wonderful quote, isn't it, dear friends? So the question follows. So why do the health professionals use drugs? We're going to answer this question. Tune in and follow us. How to Live, page 50 also says, although the patient may recover, yet the powerful effort nature was required to make to overcome the poison injured the constitution and shortened the life of the patient. There are many who do not die under the influence of drugs, but there are very many who are left useless wrecks, hopeless, gloomy, and miserable sufferers, a burden to themselves and to society. I even add on, even to their families. How to Live, page 57 also says, every additional drug given to the patient will complicate the case and make the patient's recovery more hopeless. An evil in the beginning, with nature aroused herself to overcome, and which she should have done it if left to herself, aided by the common blessings of heaven, has been made tenfold worse by introducing drug poisons into the system, which cause of themselves a destructive disease, forcing into extraordinary action the remaining life forces to war against and overcome the drug intruder. How to Live, page 61, says, there are more who die from the use of drugs than all who would have died of diseases and nature been left to do their own work. What a powerful quote. Isn't it difference? When you read Facts of Faith, page 140, it says, the endless variety of medicines in the market, the numerous advertisements of new drugs and mixtures, all of which claim to do wonderful cures, kill hundreds where they benefit one. Yet people keep dosing and continue to grow weaker until they die. God's servants should not administer medicines which they know will leave behind injurious effects upon the system, even if they do relieve present suffering. Every poisonous preparation in the vegetable and mineral kingdoms taken into the system will leave its wretched influence, affecting the liver and lungs and deranging the system generally. Later 1888 says, educate away from drugs, use them less and less, and spend more and more upon hygienic agencies. Nature will respond to God's remedies: pure air, pure water, proper exercise, and a clear conscience. When we also read page 121 of Christian Temperance, it says, a great amount of good can be done by enlightening all to whom we have access, as to the best means not only of curing the sick, but of preventing disease and suffering. The physician who endeavors to enlighten his patients as to the nature and causes of their maladies and to teach them how to avoid disease may have upward work, but if he is a conscientious reformer, he will talk plainly of the ruinous effects of self-indulgence in eating, drinking, and dressing, of the overtaxation of the vital forces that has brought his patients where they are. He will not increase the evil by administering drugs till exhausted nature gives up the struggle, but will teach the patients how to form correct habits and to aid nature in a work of restoration by wise use of your own remedies. Are we to get the difference? We only need conscientious reformers for us to win this battle. Healthful Living, page 247 to 248 says, in treating the sick, the physician will seek God for wisdom. Then, instead of placing his dependence upon drugs and expecting that medicine will bring health to his patients, he will use nature's restoratives and employ natural means where the sick may be aided to recover. Letter 82, 1908 says, let the instruction be given in simple words such as hot water, charcoal, or catnip tea. We have no need to use the many expressions used by worldly physicians, which are so difficult to understand that they must be interpreted by physicians. Nature's simple remedies will aid in recovery without leaving the deadly after effects so often felt by those who use poisonous drugs. How together, friends? Only simple remedies, that's all what we need in case of simple maladies. Manuscripts 86, 1897 says, were I sick, I would just as soon call in a lawyer as a physician from among general practitioners. I will not touch their nostrums, to which they give Latin names. I am determined to know in straight English the name of everything that I introduce into my system. That's the philosophy that we need to have, to know every name of everything that introduced into my system, into our systems. Spiritual Gifts, book 4, page 133 says, indulging in eating too frequently in too large quantities overtaxes the digestive organs and produces a feverish state of the system. The blood becomes impure and then disease of various kinds occur. A physician is sent for who prescribes some drug which gives present relief, but which does not cure the disease. It may change the form of the disease, but the real evil is increased tenfold. Nature was doing her best to rid the system of an accumulation of impurities, and should she have been left to herself, aided by the common blessings of heaven, such as pure air and pure water, a speedy and safe cure would have been affected. Are we together, dear friends? Letter 116, written 1903, says, use nature's remedies, water, sunshine, and fresh air. Do not use drugs. Drugs never heal. They only change the features of the disease. Let's go on, dear friends. When we read the book Medical Ministry, page 228, it says, experimenting in drugs is a very expensive business. Nothing should be put into the human system that will leave a baleful influence behind. Letter 82, written in 1908, says, nature's simple remedies will aid in recovery without leaving the deadly after effects so often felt by those who use poisonous drugs. They destroy the power of the patient to help himself. This power, the patients are to be taught to exercise by learning to eat simple, healthful foods, by refusing to overload the stomach with a variety of foods at one meal. All these things should come into the education of the sick. Talks should be given showing how to preserve health, how to shun sickness, how to rest when rest is needed. Even the contraindications on the labels of drugs, they do tell that drugs really are poisonous. Second selected messages, page 289, says, Christ's remedies cleanse the system, but Satan has tempted men to introduce into the system that which weakens the human machinery, clogging and destroying the fine, beautiful arrangements of God. The drugs administered to the sick do not restore, but destroy. Drugs never cure. Ellen White continually says this, drugs never cure. Instead, they place in the system seeds which bear a very bitter harvest. When we read letter 22 of 1889, she says, thousands need to be educated patiently, kindly, tenderly, but decidedly that 9/10 of their complaints are created by their own course of action. The more they introduce drugs into the system, the more certainly do they interfere with the laws of nature and bring about the very difficulties they drag themselves to avoid. Even when we read the 5 testimonies, page 311, we read, instead of taking a course to baffle disease, you are petting it and yielding to its power. You should avoid the use of drugs and carefully observe the laws of health. If you regard your life, you should eat plain food, prepared in the simplest manner, and take more physical exercise. Each member of the family needs the benefit of health reform, but drugging should be forever abandoned. Are we together, dear friends? Drugging should what? Be forever abandoned. For all it does not cure any malady, it enfeebles the system, making it more susceptible or prone to disease. How to live? Page 53 says, if those who take these drugs were alone the sufferers, the evil would not be as great. But parents not only sin against themselves in swallowing drug poisons, but they sin against their children. The vitiated state of their blood, the poison distributed throughout the system, the broken constitutions, and various drug diseases as the result of drug poisons are transmitted to their offspring and leave them as the wretched inheritance, which is another great cause of the degeneracy of the race. May God bless you, dear friends. Thank you for tuning in.
Holy words, long preserved for our walk in this world. They resound with God's own heart. Oh, let the ancient word